Okay. Erin Watt, you beautiful genius soul.
Oh, I don't know
Um,
about all that, but thank you.
Freakishly creative too, honestly. I want to say that in light of what you just said, like you are incredibly creative and we all have a different way of expressing creativity. Just like if we look at nature, there are different trees, there are different leaves, there are different flowers. Like we all, oh, there's a big bird coming. Hi. Have different ways of expressing that. So I just want to be like, own your creativity. Okay, so what is inner ray to you? Question one.
Oh, what is an array? Oh my gosh, my logical brain is like, what do you mean? Like, do you want to know about what type of company it is? Like, is it an LLC or oh, there's an elephant. Oh, so Inner Ray is a coaching company.
Mm-hmm.
But the name of the company comes from this idea that we all have this inner light, this inner radiance, right? This is not a unique concept to me. Um, but this RAE, RAE is actually an acronym. Um, it's also a beautiful name and it
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of meaning as well. But in the name of this company, it stands for Radiant Authentic Energy. And my belief is that through exploring how to have a high quality, mm, how to have the best, how to have the best and most free life, it doesn't come from any kind of external factors. It comes from tapping into and broadcasting your inner radiant authentic energy. So
Mm.
that is the essence of what inner ray means, and what I'm hoping will be the message of this podcast, will be the essence of what each of my clients and any of the coaches that work for Inner Ray, work with Inner Ray, what their clients will find for themselves and receive from the coaches. And also then the ripple effect of that by empowering people to live through their inner ray, that they will empower other people to also live that way.
Mm.
And, um, you know, on paper, we're holistic relationship coaches, but, um, yes, people come to us because they think that they have an issue with relationships. What I have found that what it really comes down to is that relationship with self, which
Mm.
again is not a unique idea to me. But it's one that I have found to be a universal spiritual truth, that
Mm.
the quality of your relationships does impact the quality of your life. And ultimately, the quality of your relationships is directly tied to the quality of that connection with yourself.
Mm.
So,
I
yeah,
agree.
that's what it means.
That's beautiful. So two questions came to me as you were speaking, and I'll let you take it whichever way down the river you want. The first one is, as you're speaking about this inner radiance and this light within, what are some of the ways that you tend to your inner radiance? What are some of the ways you nurture it? That's one pathway down the river. Or another pathway could be is how, like, what was your journey like to finding your inner ray and living from it? Depends the depth you would like to go
Yeah.
there.
So, I mean, I will tell you that like my first instinct is, oh, let's do the journey. But I also
Yeah.
know that um, I'll be taking all of us on that journey through many episodes.
Mm.
Um, so, I mean, I guess I can answer that in a very succinct way.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that for me, I had the unfortunate, or upon looking back, fortunate life circumstances to become a drug addict and alcoholic.
Mhm.
And, you know, I just, the way I came into the world, I was not given a toolkit on how to cope. And I started using drugs and alcohol really young. And then when I was 24 years old, I had an awakening. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. But I woke up and got help. And in a couple months, I'm going to have 14 years sober. So I mentioned that because I think that like initial wake up call was the beginning of me understanding or tapping into that inner radiance completely unbeknownst to me, like having no idea that's what was happening. But some part of me woke up in a different way. At the time, I would have probably called it like a burning bush spiritual experience. Well, not even at the time, but within a couple of years, I got sober in 12-step and heard the way people spoke about the spiritual experience and realized, oh, that's what happened to me. But now looking back, you know, over a decade later, I'm like, oh, that was the beginning of me being introduced to my inner radiance. So I wish I could like take credit for how it happened, but I think it's part of being human. I think we all have moments where it's easy to know that we're connected to that source because we've been disconnected for a long time. And, you know, maybe some people have always had a connection to it and they don't have that experience. But typically I find that most people go through some kind of adversity in their life and then reconnect or find a connection to that inner radiance. That answer your question?
It did. It did. And what's coming to me is a couple different things. One is, like, as kids, we aren't given a toolbox to help us cope with life's challenges. And a story came to mind that actually you told about your life that I kind of want to share because I feel like it's come full circle. Like, you told a story one time of when you were a kid and you would put notes under all your family members' doors, inviting them to family meetings. And it came full circle to me because I feel like that radiance in you, that leader in you, is also what essentially allowed you to slide little notes under all of our doors, all the coaches' doors, to be like, hey, come join this. Like, look, come be a part of this journey. And you, through living your radiance, you allowed all of us coaches a chance to also live our radiance. And I think it goes to this important piece of, like, we're born dreamers. We're born with this radiance shining within us, and there's a glow and it's ready to begin. And like, all you really have to do is believe that. And I feel like inside of all of us, there's this 5-year-old, no matter how old you are. And by tapping back into that part of us, even if it's been wounded, even if the rest of our life got really hard, like, that dreamer, that feeler, that believer lights up again. And I just like saw that little version of you lighting up. And I just think it's really fun to think about that. And it absolutely did answer my question. And I also think the other question that's coming to mind as we talk about, as you mentioned, challenges and ups and downs, is, for me, sometimes it's helpful to think of, like, okay, you've defined kind of what inner RAE is, what it stands for. And I think another way to look at it is what it's not. And I think we spend our life a lot like trying to fit in, compromising parts of who we are. And I'm just curious, from your standpoint and your journey, some sharing your wisdom around what inner radiance isn't for you and what you've learned.
Yeah,
about that.
Good question. So, you know, I think a lot of times when people, well, you asked me about myself, so I'm going to answer about myself. When I have been disconnected from myself, it's been because I'm looking outside of me to figure out how to be in the world, or what to do, or what to want, or what direction to go. And while seeking guidance outside of me is, there's nothing wrong with that, there is a difference between like seeking validation from trusted advisors or, having a spiritual, emotional network of support where you go to like remember your inner radiance. That's different than kind of indiscriminately looking outside of myself for validation or guidance about who I am. I do think part of how we find out who we are is by doing that.
Yep.
And then like trying it on and being like, oh, that is kind of me, or, oh, that's not me. It's kind of like, going to the store and not knowing what style of clothing you like and, or not knowing like how you want your hair to be cut or what shade of makeup to wear or whatever. No, I just did all these fashion analogies, but it's like you can go into the world and do that. And often by doing that, you can figure out what is you and what is not you. And, and one of the theoretical spiritual tools I've studied in human design, they call it, deconditioning. And it's the idea that when we come into the world, we're tribal animals. We want to fit in, we want to be connected. And so we come in and we're like, oh, let me be like my siblings or like my parents or like my peers or whatever it is. It's normal and natural to want to shift and adapt so that we can fit in. And where it stops being the inner radiance is when somewhere along the way, maybe you were trying to express your inner radiance, or you said or did something and consciously or subconsciously you got the message that no, that version of you doesn't belong here. That version of you makes mom uncomfortable, or that version of you will get you bullied, or that version of you will get you in trouble at school. That version of you will make your siblings jealous. That version of you will get you raped or assaulted. Right? So we have these things happen to us, and then, what's natural for a person to do if that were to happen is, oh, well, I'm never going to be that version of myself ever again, because that's not safe. And so to me, that's the opposite of the inner radiance. Finding that inner radiance is going back to those moments where we decided that version of us was not welcome, wanted, safe, and inviting it to come back out. And then we get to decide, is that just an old version of me that I want to remember and honor and learn from? Or is that still a part of me that I want to nurture and bring forth and maybe expand from?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And when you find yourself in moments where you're in that opposite field, when that inner radiance is kind of, you're disconnected from it, what are some of the things you do to connect with your inner radiance and honor it or nurture it?
Well, it's funny because I said don't go outside of yourself, but I will say that one of the biggest resources I have in my life is a tribe of like-minded, loving people who are able to be mirrors, as opposed to like, the people in my life are not going to ever intentionally, try to take away from who I am. Instead, they just reflect back and like remind me who I am, whether it be like you did, earlier when I was saying I was nervous to start today and do this podcast, and, you just reminded me of who I am. But the key to that is you have to show people who you are. In order for them to remind you who you are. Now, what I will say, I may go on a tangent here, so you'll have to bring me back, is that I had this really cool experience years ago where a friend of mine from college, which my college days, I was about as dissociated as a person can get. I mean, I was drinking, doing drugs. I was getting a high honors degree in neuroscience and chemistry. I was on the swim team. I was doing research. I was writing a thesis. I think I was the captain of a couple different organizations, or president, or whatever it was called. So I was doing all this stuff and completely disconnected from myself. And I would like go out and party until, God knows what time in the morning, and get up at 7 and like work out, clean up, do homework, clean up I would just I was completely what I would consider to be a shell of who I am today, eating disorder, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this friend from college visit me maybe like 5 years ago. I'd have to think about that. But, and we were just connecting, and I was kind of joking with her. She was telling one of those classic college Erin Watts stories where she was like waking up at 11 after partying with me all night. And she's like, how have you already like done all of your homework, ran, exercised, and cleaned your room, and you also look like completely healthy and fine? And she's like crawling out of bed. She's like, how are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of joking about that. And I was like, yeah, I was just really sick. I didn't know myself. I was really dissociated. And she kind of just looked at me and she said, yeah, that's true. She was like, but you were still you.
Mm-hmm.
And that you is still sitting here talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, so I hear you. All of that is true. But like the like core of who you are was the same.
Yeah.
And so I guess I just want to share that because, those were some of the most chaotic, unhealthy years of my life. And that inner Ray was there,
Mm-hmm.
showing itself to people. We do get lost in the chaos and the drama of what we're doing and our behaviors and the dysfunction and all of that. But people that really, really know you and care about you, or people that really know me and care about me, have reflected that back to me, that even in the darkest times, there was always still that inner Ray was always there.
Yeah. I don't think that was a tangent at all. I think it actually kind of led us right into the heart, right? Even if you think about nature, it's full of extremes. It's full of this wild, chaotic energy. And I think chaos is a reordering energy. And the extremes that you just shared about the life that you were living, you still hold those extremes and you've bridged them. It's like when I was thinking about this and journaling about like, what is inner radiance to me? I was like, true nature is wild. Like, and it is full of these paradoxes, and it's full of, being soft and really strong, and it's full of being playful and really wise, and all of these different components that bridge all of these beautiful extremes. And so I think within those extremes, that inner radiance shines, and it's actually leading us into currents that we need to explore to find out what is most authentic to our nature. I'm curious too. I mean, you've mentioned so much about your tribe, and I feel that, and I feel grateful to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm also curious, like individually, like different ways you have tended to that sacred nature in yourself. So do you go out in nature? Do you what type of music do you like? Do you like to dance? Like, do you have any rituals that help you get in tune with yourself? Yeah, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. So yes, all of those things. What I would say is, it really can change a lot day to day, season to season. I'm going to pause for a minute and just disclose I live with chronic pain, and chronic, health stuff. So that can really impact how I access it. Like today, before I got onto this, Zoom to do this podcast, I took an Epsom salt bath. Sometimes that is a really great way. Water is often a way that I really access that, inner radiance and nurture it. I do ice baths. I do hot baths. Swimming when the season is right. Like I have a friend who has a pool in their backyard, and we kind of joke it's like my manifestation pool, but I just go and float in it for hours. If I live by the ocean, I'm sure I would also use the ocean like you get to do. Nature, absolutely. One of the requirements when I bought my house was that I had to have a backyard and it had to have
Mm.
trees. Like
Mm.
I needed grass and I needed trees and I needed, I'm not like the most skilled gardener, but I needed to like have plants, and I knew that that was important to me. Um, I also have found over the years that living alone, um, is really important to the way that my energy works. I do have a cat and a dog that live with me.
Mm.
But they usually just reflect back to me when I'm not in my inner radiance.
Mhm.
So as opposed to like taking away from, they amplify and reflect back to me what's going on with me. And they're such a source of joy. Dancing is definitely one that helps a lot. Really just music in general. I read
Mm.
something the other day that people that tend to be a little bit more clairaudient really connect through music. And I've learned to understand that I have a lot of clairaudience. So I definitely find that music, sound healing, um, help a lot. Silence helps
Mm.
a lot. Like I'm not someone, I do like audiobooks and I do like music, but I often spend significant chunks of the day in complete silence. Not because I'm being a monk or anything. It's just like I just kind of, I can get overstimulated.
Mhm.
And often I work a lot. So, you know, I like to drive in silence. I like to be in my house in complete silence. Um, let's see what else. Getting enough sleep.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. Do you think I've given you enough
Oh, yeah, there's a
examples?
bunch
Okay.
there. Yeah, and I share a lot of those same practices and rituals. Silence is huge because it helps quiet all the chaos around us for sure.
Mhm.
And then music takes you right into the places that need to be felt, and maybe that we've had trouble feeling or expressing. Even like before this, I was just like
Mhm.
full on dancing and letting myself go and letting my mind fade away. Um, I'm wondering if there's anything that's bubbling up inside of you that you feel like we haven't touched on that would be helpful to circle back to in terms of what interradiance means to you and to the company and to the people that will be a part of it with us.
Well, what I plan to do with this podcast kind of
Mm-hmm.
answers that, which is that this is a really, there are some universal things that we all can do that
Mm-hmm.
help us connect to our inner radiant authentic energy, and it is also really individual.
Yep.
So part of my hope in creating this platform is having each, we're going to talk to you and hear what you do, and talk to Delaney and Eric and Debbie, and hear from all of you, because there are going to be people listening who are like, ugh, I hate taking baths. Or, yeah, silence is awful. Why would
Yeah.
you do that? Or, um, I just thought of another one, yoga therapy.
Yoga.
That's another huge one. And I would say meditation, but I also don't want to like be misleading or make people think I sit for hours in silence. Like I usually do guided
Yeah.
meditations,
Me too.
or moving meditations. Like the yoga therapy practice that I have is like a moving meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I got sidetracked, but my point in, you said what's bubbling up, is just this need to, um, you know, make sure that anybody listening knows that you will know what these things are for you.
Yeah.
Um, and they may or may not be the same as the things that I've just said are for me. And I can also tell you there was a time in my life where I didn't do any of those things, and I still at times had access to that part of myself, because it's
Yeah.
just like our essence will come through.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, that's what was bubbling up. Just that assurance for anybody listening. Like if you don't resonate with the things I'm saying, like I promise you, you're not doing anything wrong. We
Yeah.
just may be completely different, which is part of the uniqueness of being human.
Totally. I'm glad that you shared that. Yeah, I think it's so important. And This life is all about resonance.
Yeah. Like,
And
oh, here's another thing. Sorry, this is
no,
important.
good. Joe,
I
Joe.
I am not someone who like kind of I'm like a serious person. It's
Hmm.
both one of my biggest assets and also like one thing I wish I could change about myself. So one of the things that will immediately remind me of that inner radiance is to be around children or like my
Mm,
playful friends.
yeah.
My friend Lizzie was over here yesterday. We were working on a project and it involved we were like we're leading this workshop together. And so we had these like psychodrama scarves like thrown all over my kitchen. And then we were like
Love
outside and
that.
she was like dancing around. And I came in and my kitchen was like filled with colorful scarves. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is not something that my kitchen would never look that way if I was the only person in the house.
Right.
But at the same time, like and that's part of why I'm so excited to partner with you is that even though I may never choose to do something playful or funny or light just as a baseline, um, when the people in my life are playful and funny and light, that part of me shines in a different
Yeah.
way than when I'm taking a bath or, meditating, looking at the trees or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. I was thinking about that too. I was looking at my wall and I have this beautiful picture of two horses that are kind of facing each other. And I was like, everything is about co-creation and
Mhm.
letting being in relationship with others and allowing that field between us to shine and pull
Yeah.
out parts of us that maybe haven't had a chance to express themselves and had a chance to connect and be free, honestly.
Yep. And that's why, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in future episodes. That's why
Yeah.
that even though the name of the company is Inner RAE, we are a
Yep.
holistic relationship coaching company because I ultimately believe that there's only so much of yourself you can know on your own. Like
Yeah,
so much more you learn in relationship
totally.
and you can amplify and challenge and get clear about the edges of where you begin and someone else begins.
Mm.
So oh well, this was more fun than I thought it was going to be.
I know. Wait, and I have one more question because
Yeah, okay.
I was downstairs and I have like Beanie Babies everywhere and stuffed animals everywhere, and I was like, which ones are speaking to me? And I grabbed these four,
Oh my goodness.
and
This is why I love you.
I'm curious if which one you would pick right now, and tell us a little story about why you would pick that animal. This is a dolphin, by the way. It's just really colorful.
I mean, I feel like I would be there's no way to not pick the elephant because it would be
Yes.
self-betrayal to not pick the elephant, even though I love all of them and feel, drawn to all of them, especially
Yeah.
is that a walrus?
Yes.
Oh my
Isn't he
gosh.
so
Can
cute?
I pick both of them?
Yes. Tell us a little
Okay.
story about why.
I don't know why with the walrus, I just can't not pick the walrus, but
That's what happened to me too. He was just staring at me down there.
I,
I was like, you look so cute
I
right
know
now.
he's so cute. I mean, maybe someone will psychoanalyze this later for us and tell us why, but um so the elephants for some reason have always just been this animal that I resonated with. And when I was a little girl, I would ask for an elephant, like a real
Oh,
elephant. Like I wanted an actual elephant. And someday I'll tell a longer story about that, but
yeah,
it like
please.
everyone knew that I was obsessed with elephants. And when I moved to Nashville, which was about a year before I ended up getting sober, I was getting out of an abusive relationship
Mm,
and I went and got a tattoo of an elephant on my wrist. It's in white ink because
mm,
I wanted it to be something that was just for me. And the elephant is in the tattoo, the elephant is like taking a step forward and the trunk is up.
mm,
And there was a lot of symbolism in that for me, which is that, when the trunk is up, it's meant to be good luck. And then the elephant is moving forward, which was the energy that I was trying to embody by moving to Nashville and starting my life
mm.
over. And then also I had heard, elephants never forget. They grieve when a member of their tribe passes, they have funerals. And honestly, I think elephants live longer than a lot of humans. And so there's something about that just majesty and strength and relationships between the elephants. And, I've been told my whole life, like I have a very commanding presence and energy. And I feel like when you're in the presence of an elephant, you can't not kind of take a step back, and the presence of an elephant, it leaves an impact. At least it does for me. And so I don't know, I guess I resonate with the energy of elephants in that way.
Beautiful. I love that story. I love it. Like most people ask for like a dog for Christmas or for your birthday, and you're like, I want an elephant.
Literally asked for an elephant. And yeah, I feel like I could tell you like 27 stories about how much I want an elephant, but believe me, it was a thing.
That's incredible. Oh, I'm glad that I was not planning on including these little guys in this, but they spoke and I was like, okay.
But see, this is why you're magical, Katie. And I'm so glad we're doing this together. So
yeah, me too.
Thank you for the questions and the space and the time. And
yeah,
I guess it's a wrap, huh?
I think it's a wrap.
Yay.
Good stuff.
Okay.